Look who's stopping by. Big, huge trade in the NFL on Monday. I'm sure Gerry Dulac didn't expect one on July 30th, but neither did I. Steelers radio network host and longtime chronicler of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Gerry Dulac, back in the program. Good to see you, Gerry. How are you?
Rich, I'm good. I couldn't have been more surprised if I were Bobby Bonilla on July 1st getting the payout. I will say this: what didn't surprise me, Rich, is that they were willing to move on from Minkah Fitzpatrick. I was told about a month ago that they weren't going to actively shop him, but if somebody came a knocking, they would listen and be willing to make a deal, because for what they're paying him, his lack of splash plays was not commensurate with the dollar figure he's getting. Minkah Fitzpatrick's a good football player, but you go over the last 2 years, there's no scoop and scores, there's no picks, there's no pick sixes, there's no game-changing plays, and you're paying him a lot of money to do that, and he wasn't doing that, and so they were willing to make a deal for him if the right one came along. So I'm not surprised that they made that move. I'm not surprised that they went and got Jalen Ramsey. Because that's just, Rich, there's a couple ways, there's a couple adjectives you can affix to this. And I don't know if it's urgency or desperation, but it's move after move with this team. And they've gotten away from their philosophy in free agency. Now, I realize this was a trade, but their philosophy in free agency was always get a guy heading into his second contract, whether he was 25 or 26, and hoping that his best years were ahead of him. All the moves they made the last couple years are for guys whose best years are probably behind them. And so that's a departure from what they have historically done, but it points up that they are willing to do what they have to do to try and win a playoff game. That's what this is all about. They've made the playoffs for the last 5 years, but, they've 0-5. Mike Tomlin, 5 straight one and dones. And they're trying to change that, and I'll give them credit for doing everything they can, obviously, to change that. But, you have to be careful, because a lot of these guys, I love golf analogies. If they're on the back nine of their career, to me, they're putting out on the 12th green. So it's different from what they've historically have done.
But that said, I mean, when you got a 41-year-old quarterback, right?
Right.
Like, this is it. The eggs are all in the 2025 basket. And so, bringing in Ramsey would make sense, even with having Darius Slay and Joey Porter Jr. You're now strengthening that back end, despite losing Fitzpatrick. But you pointed out the lack of splash plays, and now you're bringing in a tight end that Arthur Smith at least knows, right? Who isn't on the back nine. I mean, he just came off of the best year of his career in Jonnu Smith. So if you're wondering who the pass catchers are going to be at the wide receiver position, why not add a tight end of Smith's capability? Yes,
well,
Gerry, is that the mindset?
Rich, I mean, he'll be their third tight end. What he is he's Michael Pruitt, but a better version. He's an upgrade over that. He's a guy who can play tight end. He's a guy who can line up at wide receiver, and he's a guy who can line up at fullback. And that's exactly what Arthur Smith wanted when he brought in one of his former players, Michael Pruitt, and it's the same thing with Jonnu Smith. So, I think the other thing in play here, when you look at Jonnu Smith perhaps lining up outside or in the slot, you're talking about a guy 6'3", 6'4", almost 250 pounds. You're bringing in Jalen Ramsey, another physical, tough hombre, and you look at what they did in the draft, where Mike Tomlin openly admitted they're interested in physicality, and that goes back to DK Metcalf. They are trying to become more of a physical football team, and everybody knows they're a physical football team. But after the way they got pushed around twice by the Baltimore Ravens, they don't want to get pushed around again. So physicality has been a big emphasis on this in this offseason. And Jalen Ramsey and even Jonnu Smith are factors in that. Now, Jonnu Smith isn't brought in to be a game changer. He's not that kind of player. He's going to be a complementary player. But Jalen Ramsey obviously has the ability to be that.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.